Right, so hello Emily, welcome to Connected Classes. Would you mind introducing yourself to my final year group?
Sure. My name's Emily Macinnes, and I am a documentary photographer from Scotland and currently based in Scotland. And I graduated from Nottingham Trent University in 2012.
Brilliant. Could you give us a little bit of an outline of the type of work that you do, the type of photography that you make?
Sure. So when I started at Nottingham, I kind of very quickly realized that the reason I wanted to do photography was because I was interested in people's stories, in politics, and in sociology. So it was just a natural fit that I went into documentary photography and have pretty much stayed within that. Done a little bit of commercial work and things like that, but really where my heart is documentary photojournalism and some video documentary work too. So.
Great. So could you sort of talk a little bit about making a living as a documentary photographer? How on earth do you make ends meet out there in the world?
Sure. So there's no answer that fits everybody. There's no kind of A to B, this is how you do it. And I think even when you speak to established photographers, they're still figuring it out in a lot of ways. Because things have changed drastically in the last 10 years. That doesn't mean there isn't ways. It's just finding what fits with you, with your style of photography, with where you are in the world, where you want to be, geographically, whether you want to do, be traveling and living in other countries, or whether you want to be based at home. What I've seen from a lot of photographers of my age that are, successful within their work, or, they're getting commissions, things like that, they're often based somewhere and working on a particular type of story, or they've figured out what their niche is, and people know to come to them for that kind of story.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. In terms of, there's so many different layers to making ends meet. I think, it's about also, yeah, there's no answer. There's no one answer. But if you want to do documentary photography, I think it's important to figure out what you want to say and follow the stories that are really important to you, and also work on making a very complete body of work and go in depth with it. I think when you're just doing stories half-heartedly, or you're doing stories because you think they'll be published and or you think they'll get recognition, I think people can see through that. They see when there's not depth, and there is a need definitely now for quality journalism, and I think a lot of the editors out there are looking for work that has a lot of depth to it. So you have to go in fully committed and stories that you really care about, because if you end up doing a story because you think it's going to be great, but your heart isn't in it, I think you won't do justice to the people you're photographing, and also you won't, I think at the end of the day, it won't go as far as it could or it should. Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question there.
Do you do commissioned work? Do you do much commissioned work?
I do. I think, not gone are the days, but the days are fewer when an editor calls you up and says, okay, we want you to do this. Certainly not paid, but all expenses paid, they will pay, of course. But wait, let me answer that again. I just waffled. You're going to have to edit this bit out. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Ask me that question again.
So do you do a lot of commissioned work? Are you commissioned to do a lot of projects?
So it varies. I think the way that it works now often is that you have to pitch a story often to editors. So it's coming from you, the ideas are coming from you. Most often, there are definitely times when editors, they want a certain thing and they'll come to you, and I've had commissions in different varieties, some from NGOs, some from bigger organizations like UNICEF or Oxfam, and then other kind of commissions, like I've got one coming up that's from an organization based in Leeds who wants a series of portraits from families around the UK, and so they're commissioning me to go and photograph with these families. So different things kind of come up, or they come in different ways. Sometimes it will be word of mouth. Sometimes it's because you're working on a particular genre of photography, and they've seen your work and they think, okay, this is a great fit. But yeah, I've done commissions in different capacities, but a lot of my work that I've done, or maybe it's about 50-50 actually, is work that I've self-initiated, that I've thought, okay, I really want to photograph this. How do I make that happen? And then pitching it afterwards. I think really that's the most common way of working. And of course, there's much higher risk to that.
Yeah.
Because you don't know if it's going to be published. You don't know. So I think it's really important to think about, is there interest in this story? Is it relevant? Editors are always thinking about the timeliness of something. And I think that's not something that clicked with me until after I graduated and I was working, and I think I heard it from a few different people from talks and things like that, that think about why is an editor going to publish this work now? Because within the editorial market, they're not just publishing stories because, oh, this is a great story. It has to be, there's got to be a deeper reason for it.
Yeah. Do you find to do commercial work to supplement your income?
I think I avoid it for as long as possible, because I thought I really love documentary photography, and if I can do that all the time, then I got to make this work. And the more I've kind of navigated my way through, the more I've realized that it's a very tough slog. You're always pitching, and it doesn't pay well considering the amount of hours that you put in. I've spent so many unpaid hours, working on projects, which is fine because I love it, and I'm doing, if I didn't love it, I think I would have quit a long time ago, because, it wasn't worth it at the beginning. I think now I'm figuring out much better how to equate, time and money and all of those kind of things. But I've found that actually now that I've started taking on a bit more commercial work, that I've been able to relax a bit more, and money's coming in much easier. And it actually allows me to think a lot more about the projects that I want to do, and I have more time and energy, because I'm not always I think when you're working on documentary photography, it feels like you're running really fast on a treadmill all the time to make things work, and you've got to be pitching stuff here and there. Whereas with commercial work, you get paid a bit better for the hours that you're doing, and so it affords you to slow down a bit, take time for the documentary work. I think, yeah, I've found a nice balance now, and fingers crossed it stays like that. So,
well, that's really positive, because I think, particularly when photographers start out and they have to do sort of multiple jobs, like they might be working in a cafe or something to earn some money so they can then go on and shoot. I think it's really important to recognise those multiple income streams.
Definitely, and enjoy it. I think I fought with it for a long time, and I think it wasn't until I read this one line in an interview with a photographer that said, there's no shame in having a part-time job, or, and he realized as soon as he said that to himself, that it was only himself that was, putting that shame on himself. And actually there isn't. And the year that I worked in Edinburgh and I was working in a cinema at the same time, I made some really interesting work, because I was relaxed. I knew I could pay my bills at the end of the month, and I had all this time to think it, like I was standing, in the foyer ripping tickets, but I could really absorb and think about the work that I was doing, because it's a lot of mental, when you're being creative, I think you need that time. And if you're always busy and on the go, and I think you don't afford yourself that time. And so enjoy having a part-time job if at the start, or enjoy doing the commercial work that, I think it's only yourself that will judge that. Nobody else is going to say, oh, you shouldn't be doing that, or, you shouldn't have a part-time job. Absolutely take the part-time job if it means that you can make the work that you really want to make.
That's brilliant. Could you tell us a little bit about promoting yourself as a photographer? Finding work, finding commissions, those kind of things. What sorts of things would you advise?
Yeah. So this is something that I'm not very good at. I think I'm sometimes too humble, and people always say to me, you need to promote yourself more. And I've been lucky that I've had people around me kind of saying, or in some ways kind of helping me to put myself out there. And in time, I've grown to realize actually that it's very important that you do, and it's not an arrogance, or it's not, you have to. I mean, when you're freelance, you're a brand in a way, and I think you have to let people know that you're there, because there's a lot of photographers out there and people need to know where they can find you. And I've had people now come to me and say, I've seen your website, I've seen your work, or I've heard about you through this, and nobody's going to know. I mean, you can be the best photographer in the world, but if nobody knows about you, then, you're not going to get the commissions, you're not going to get the work. So it's really important to put yourself out there in lots of different ways, talk to people. I think a website's really important. There's some photographers who say it's not, but I've had a lot of work, or a lot of people come to me and say, I've seen your website and that's how I've got work. To have an online presence is very important. I mean, even if you don't have to spend loads on a website, but as long as you have a portfolio online, and I think also really think about the work that you're putting up there. I think sometimes less is more, like quality work, because an editor is gonna, if they look at your work, if they see two really strong bodies of work, then I think they're far more likely to pick up the phone than if you're kind of have lots of work that's sort of, that you haven't really fully completed, or sort of you've half thought about, or you're sort of still in development. I think it's really important, quality over quantity, definitely in that respect. Yeah.
Brilliant. So how do you develop your ideas? How do you kind of show your work? How do you get your work out there to the public? So you've mentioned magazine editors and things, and then how do you develop your ideas?
So that's something that I kind of also struggled with for a long time, that I felt fine with the whole research stage and the shooting stage and everything. Like that was, I was doing that many times. I was going out and shooting, working with various NGOs whilst I was at university and afterwards. Or I thought of an idea and I went out and I shot it and I made it happen. But then it was always that latter stage, like how I got it out there, that I was always hitting a kind of barrier and didn't quite know. Then I was suddenly like, well, how do I put it out there? And I was sending emails, to editors, and nothing was coming back. And I think that was the hardest bit, and it's still in some ways I think the hardest bit, because there is a lot of work out there and I think it's easy for things to get lost. So I think it's really important when you start a project to think about exactly how you want it to go and where you want it to go. And while it may not end up there, I think to have that focus and to have that foresight is very important, because otherwise you end up just making a lot of work that sits maybe on your website and doesn't go anywhere else. So I think have a clear goal as to, I want this published in a magazine, or this is going to be great in an exhibition because I want to have installations as well, or think about how you want your audience to engage with it, because at the end of the day we're photographers and we're making work for other people to see. So if it just sits on your hard drive, then some people do it for therapeutic, of course it's cathartic, but I think really at the end of the day you are making it to be seen. And so definitely think about that. And the work that I think I've had the most success with has been work where I've thought, okay, this is how I need to get it out there, and I've contacted somebody, or I think also putting it out in competitions and things like that. Even if you don't win, there's judges who see it, and they maybe are connected. A lot of these judges of competitions, they're also editors and publishers, and they're involved in a lot of other areas. So that's really important. I think a lot of my early successes after university came from entering competitions. And
Okay, so, and I know also that you did some further study after leaving, so it was a few years after you graduated?
Yeah, I'm trying to think now how many years. So I graduated in 2012 from Nottingham, and I was in Denmark in 2015. So,
and what made you make that choice to do further study?
So when I left Trent, I had a few tutors saying to me, don't go straight away and do further study. And I think in my heart, I didn't want to. I really wanted to go out into the world and apply what I'd learned at school and figure out, how to make myself a photographer and work as a freelance. Even though I kind of didn't have any idea how to, but I just thought, okay, I need to try this and see how. I don't want to go back into an institution, and because you're held there, when you're in an institution, you have, people are helping you out, and there's so many things that you just don't, you don't have when you're working as a freelance. So I did that, and then I think it was a couple of years into that, I was struggling really with this side of how do I get my work out there. I really want to figure out how to make better use of the work that I'm doing, and I knew about this course in Denmark at the Danish School of Media and Journalism, and I'd heard about it in a few different publications, and I'd always seen it in a few other photographers that I really respected. I'd seen it on their CVs, and so one photographer I knew, I contacted her and said, "Can you tell me about the school? What's it like?" And she printed like a 2-page PDF, just being like, "It's amazing. It's really good school. It's perfect for people who've done an undergrad and want to do something more specific." And that's what I needed at that point. I think Naughty and Trent was a general photography course, and I had specialized myself in documentary, but I really wanted that further, like people who were working very specifically within documentary and who knew that world in and out. And that's essentially what I got, and I absolutely love it. It was a whirlwind. It was like 4 months. I've just done one semester, and I definitely plan to go back and do a second.
Great.
But I'm enjoying also, again, applying what I've learned there into the real world. So it was just, I think I'm still absorbing what I learned there. I mean,
that's good. I think you don't ever stop learning, which I think is really kind of positive. Can I just ask you, because we've only got sort of 5 minutes or so left, what do you think are the most important skills that anyone wanting to make a living in photography will need? Not necessarily technical skills, but those other skills.
So for me, technical skills is definitely down there. I think there's so many other things that will make you a successful photographer, and the first one is determination. Without doubt, I think the photographers that I see who are making it and who are making good work, they're so determined, and they have not given up. And while they may doubt and feel low at some points and question if this is the right profession, they still keep going, and they pick themselves up after every fall, after every rejection. I think you have to have really thick skin because you're putting creative work out there and it's being judged. And I think the quicker you realize it's not personal, it's just, people are critiquing your ideas, but you just got to keep going, and you got to keep putting them out there. And there's so many, I just think definitely determination, definitely that. I think, what else? I think they're the most important things, really.
Well, I think absolutely, and I think with determination you can achieve all sorts of things. I'm just going to get you to think back to your final year pre-graduation self.
Okay. Like forever.
What would you tell yourself? You've got like another couple of terms left, and you want to be a photographer. It doesn't necessarily have to be within documentary. What would you tell yourself to get ready?
I think it's really important to have an idea of where you want to be in photography geographically, whether it's you want to stay at home, and figure out how photography is going to fit around that, how that lifestyle will fit in with what you really deep down want in life. Also figure out what aspect of photography you want to work in, because there's loads of different areas. It may not be that you're behind the shutter. It could be that you want to work as an editor, and actually you're better at critiquing and reviewing if you've been in seminars, and actually the part that you really love and enjoy is sitting and looking at other people's work and figuring out how it fits together. Then maybe an editor's right for you, or maybe a curator. And then for exhibitions. And I think also it's, what else would I suggest? There's so many things. I'm just trying to think of them. Figure out how you want to make money out of it. I think also just talk to a lot of people, talk to the people that you know as well, make those contacts before you leave, because when you leave you kind of are like, okay, so what now? Where do I go? There's no like clear path. And so I think the most important thing is to make use of the contacts that you already have. Absolutely. Or if not, make new ones. Yeah, figure out within your, even in your local community, like some of the most interesting work I've done, or some of the most, I don't know, the loveliest work I've done is with people I know at home, and I've done really nice like projects. It's for them, but I've really enjoyed it, and actually, you know, that's been such a sense of security there. It's not always about New York Times and all the big stuff. Like, it's actually about what's around you now. Figure out what that is and where your network is. Figure out how you can tap into the other photographers and students on your course as well. That's really important. Stay in touch with them. Like, they're a really big resource to you also.
Absolutely, and I know that that's kind of something that you guys have done really brilliantly, so always makes me proud. Just a final kind of closer then, to think, have you got any advice for, or top tips for people starting their journeys within photography?
I think the most important thing is to figure out what really gets you excited, because that's what's going to carry you through. That's what's going to make you fight through, you know, all the doubts and everything like that. So it doesn't mean that you have to know 100%, but begin that journey of figuring out exactly, you know, what it is that you really enjoy. And I think also it's really important to think about well-rounded ideas. I think that was a big learning curve for me, is to really you know, figure out how to fully execute a project. You know, I think at school sometimes, you know, we have such, you know, short deadlines, and we make work, and then it goes out there and we kind of have a little platform, and then that's it, and then it passes and you're on to the next one. And actually, I think you have to think about what projects are going to have gravity and longevity, and that's just done through, you know, researching, doing a lot of research, figuring out what's already out there in the world in terms of photography, keeping an eye on, you know, all the new stuff coming in. If you're a fashion photographer, figuring out, you know, what's really current and how can I fit into that. And yeah, contacts is definitely important. Just make use of them, email people, go and assist with people. I've got a great guy here that I'm assisting with, and now I work with him, and I'm working as an assistant videographer, and you know, a lot of work has come through that. So yeah, make use of all those people that you've been in touch with at uni and afterwards. So.
Okay, just on that assisting, I'm going to ask on that one, what do you think you need to be a perfect assistant?
Oh, there's no perfect assistant, because each photographer, each person you're working for is totally different. And I think as long as you're, you know, friendly and you're helpful and you're attentive and you're, you know, I think if you're an assistant, you almost have to let down your own, you know, photographers often, they're the person, you know, they're thinking totally about everything, and they're working on their own. And so I think when you're assistant, you have to figure out, how do I best facilitate that photographer to do his work, you know, or their work. And maybe it's you're giving creative input also, but you're really working, you know, to observe and learn as much as possible. So I think just be open to what's coming in, and also make yourself, you know, as flexible and everything as possible, because that's what they need from you. So
that's brilliant, and I love that idea of us finishing on the idea of making yourself as open as possible when we're looking at these open and connected classes and sharing our own network. So a big thank you to you, Emily. If you want to say goodbye to my group, feel free, and then we'll end the interview.
I just want to say it's a really exciting world out there, and I think there's a lot of things that will come at you that make you think, should I be doing this? And you know, everybody is saying the world of photography is changing, but I think just go for it, because it's so exciting, and I've had so many amazing experiences that I would not change for the world. Met so many amazing people, been in so many crazy different situations, that I just think it's all been worth it. You know, it's so worth it, and it's an amazing life if that's what you want. So yes, go for it. You're going to be great. So, and it was, good luck with your class.